Thanks, Georgie. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, I'll be able to complement Erik's insights with an overview of the value of getting the right financial wellness package from an employer perspective, reflecting our implementation of pay on demand at Bupa Care Services. So as I'm sure you would imagine, Bupa in general has, quite a rich reward package and all the whistles and bells that you would expect. We do experience some challenges, particularly in the care sector, and this story, all told, is probably around about 4 years in the making of us addressing whether we're actually hitting the mark for our employees. And just by way of background and context, I'm sure you're aware the UK has got a chronic shortage of nursing and caring resources, and the care sector, aged care sector, is probably the least glamorous angle of a care career. So that's the backdrop that we're operating in, and getting the reward package right is so key for us meeting that ongoing challenge. So as I mentioned earlier, we have got a very rich reward package, but when you look at that through the lens of care services, it starts to lose some of its relevance. If we've got packages around saving, salary sacrifice type schemes where people are saving for pensions or buying bikes or computers or buying up annual leave. And that's great if somebody has got the NI to save, but if that isn't your spending priority, clearly that loses all its relevance in this sector. The timeliness of our compensation as well was something that was a challenge, by virtue of the fact that we compensate these staff groups on the back of timesheets. It meant that we were always paying in arrears pretty much, which made it very difficult to plan. We pay in full weeks, which often means that we are paying a 4-week, 5-week pattern, paying at the end of the month. So every third month was slightly lumpier than the previous 2 payments. And again, that made financial planning very difficult. And what we also experience is that a home manager would have an immediate requirement for some resource to make sure our care ratios were good. If somebody had called in sick, an immediate need to fill a shift. But an individual volunteering to fill that shift wasn't going to get that compensation, potentially for up to 6 weeks by the time it had filtered through payroll cut-offs and actually landed in their payslip. So the timeliness was a real challenge for us. What was therefore a challenge because of these aspects and the competitiveness of the resource in this sector was making sure we were aligning with business objectives. Our key objective as a business is to provide fantastic quality care for our residents. And the best way of doing that is reducing the number of people that have contact with those residents. And if we're having to deploy agency resources or bank resources, that doesn't put the same familiar face in front of our residents. It doesn't create those heartfelt relationships and influence our clinical outcomes in a positive way. So any initiative that helps us reduce the number of people that come into our homes is really key, especially where we've got dementia units for sure. And especially right now, actually, where infection control is really key, and reducing the number of people that are in and out of our care homes and dealing with our residents. And also, importantly from a business perspective, fiscally, we want to reduce our agency spend. It's very expensive to deploy agency and much cheaper as a business in an already squeezed margin to get our existing employees to do those shifts. So how did we try and address this? So what we did initially was we created partnerships with Neighbour and Leeds Credit Union that provided our employees with access to debt consolidation, access to preferential loans, and also saving products through the credit union, which is, enabled by the employer, but a little bit clunky. It's not streamlined. There's application processes and work to do to access those benefits. We improved our emergency loan process. We removed some of the administrative friction from that, but it's still, because it was a business sponsored scheme, it still involved the individual going and asking the home manager for that financial support and that loan from Bupa, which as Erik mentioned earlier, that shame and guilt around not quite being on top of your finances, we felt was prohibitive to employees, and they weren't accessing that when they really needed it. A longer term plan that we had was to invest in having one time and attendance system across the estate. I think at the time we embarked on this project, we had 6 time and attendance systems that were wired in a variety of ways, tech enabled for the employee in a variety of ways, and just not a great experience for the employee and the administration. So we harmonized onto one time and attendance system. What that also did for us was it opened the door for us to be able to mirror or research mirroring the NHS labour model, where they have a monthly payroll for permanent employees and a weekly paid bank portfolio, and those two work in combination to provide safe care ratios. And we were looking at that point to mirror that experience with the NHS. But that in itself created barriers. It's logistically very difficult to deliver that kind of model. It creates all sorts of complexity around national insurance and pension treatment and the appropriate tax treatment for the individual. And we were also conscious that there wasn't a one size fits all. You know, we had people that were paid monthly and were quite happy being paid monthly, alongside somebody who desperately needed access to cash and cash injections outside of that monthly pay cycle. It also meant that we were layering administrative burden into the homes, which is not the direction of travel that we wanted to support. So while we were looking at ways to solve this problem, we were really struggling with Plan A hitting the mark. And at that point, around that time, the concept of pay and demand really started to gain some traction and some coverage as a concept within reward and payroll circles. So we decided to just pivot our resources and our energy into researching what that would look like, alongside looking at replicating the NHS model. So there were still a few barriers to us being able to implement that. We had to get over some initial stereotypes, I suppose, from our senior executive sponsors around this kind of vehicle. There was some real discomfort around whether we were just tech enabling people to get into debt quicker, and that clearly wasn't, you know, what something that we wanted to facilitate. So our approach was always going to be very prudent and very much designed around safeguarding that eventuality. The technology was pretty new to market, and you know, Bupa's a long established company. We don't necessarily like being trailblazers. We like using tried and tested models. And because this concept was fairly new, the data points available to create a business case needed a little bit of imagination and a little bit of contextualization to our sector to really understand what that cost benefit forecast would be and get that internal buy-in. Once we'd gotten over those main hurdles, the introduction of the technology in proportion was relatively straightforward. It was massively enabled by the time and attendance system that was in situ by this point, and you know, getting 2 systems to talk to each other rather than getting 6 TNAs to talk to the wage stream product made that implementation really straightforward and relatively easy. What we'd also achieved through rolling out our time and attendance system is that it was mobile deployed. So we'd already established a portfolio of employees that were using their mobile phones to connect and engage with us as a company, you know, to book holidays or look at what shifts are available. And the wage stream application was, you know, had really safe entry into that same space of people looking at things on their mobile phones that connected to work. So what does success look like for us? So we implemented wage stream in our care services sector in November 2019. We realised our financial ROA within the first quarter, which is fantastic. It was, you know, it landed into open arms. Ultimately, the take up really from the get-go was significant. There was no build-up as we've experienced in other benefit rollouts. So that was very welcomed, and we knew from very early of the launch that we were in the right place with this. We surveyed users within a month of having the system launched, and we got around about 600 replies, and we noted reduction in financial stress, a reduction in being distracted at work, which again for us is massively key when people are administering medication or giving one-to-one care. We also noted a reduction in the use of payday loans or reduction in using overdraft facilities, which again is exactly the positive effect that we were trying to create. We had we had users from across the estate. So we currently have, so to give you where we're up to currently with users, just under half of our employees have enrolled and have the application in their pocket. Of those enrollees, half of them are using the product to stream. So they're not insignificant sign-ups. The people that aren't using the application to stream finances are just using the application to know that they've got that emergency buffer if they were to need it. You know, a lot of this, the financial well-being and financial health space in our experience is not just about, you know, money changing hands. It's very often about just providing that safety net and that comfort that you are insulated against any, you know, emergency situations and financial shocks. So that's really great to see that there's a benefit even if people aren't using the stream facility. We have case studies from across the estate. So all our homes and villages are participating. So again, it's, you know, it's across the UK, it's across the earnings groups, it's across our roles. You know, there's no like one pocket of people that we're servicing and other people are not using it. It is across the piece. And we have case studies from either end of the experiences. So we have a mother of 4 who is using the app to manage her bills and her outgoings and not resorting to predatory lenders, which she has had to do in the past, compared to a young man who is still living at home, probably leaning into the bank of mum and dad a little bit more than he should be, and is using the application to create his own financial independence. So, you know, we are talking about something that really does cut across the demographics, which is fantastic. Since our launch in November last year, we have continuously improved the application. We have created a segmentation of additional and non-contractual shifts, and this has been a real game changer. So just harking back to the situation where managers were struggling to get employees to take a shift on the last minute, or, you know, can you stay later for a couple of hours, or can you do a shift for me tomorrow? That has really turned around. It's been a complete game changer for us, because somebody can pick up a shift tomorrow that they weren't planning on doing and then spend that money the day after. And in that kind of scenario, it's unexpected additional compensation, and they're not even touching their monthly bills money that they will get at the end of the month through the payroll. So that has really created this situation where we have employees that have got that monthly regular income that they are putting to one side, and rather than then getting a second job and being on somebody else's bank for that weekly cash injection, they're creating that through the application, which is exactly the scenario we were trying to create. What has also improved with the application is this concept of safe stream, where individuals can put a tiny amount of their earnings into a little savings cushion within the application. And we have around about 800 people using that at the moment, and reporting, some of them reporting that this is the first time they've ever had any savings on one side. Again, creating that philosophical safety net underneath somebody's financial wellness. So it's all good news from our perspective. So I'll leave you with some sound bites from some of our customers, and some context around why people are using the app and what they're using it for. And just almost hot off the press, actually, we have just reached £5 million worth of streams since we launched in care services. So that's around about 11 months worth of streams, totaling £5 million worth of money into people's hands when they need it for all the right reasons, and putting them more in control of their financial health. We have a few more rollouts planned. We rolled out to our dental portfolio this month. Last month. We're in November now, aren't we? So in October, we rolled out to our dental arm. We are looking forward to rolling out to our insurance and health clinics portfolio this month. And looking forward to the same rave reviews from that portfolio. So hopefully that has helped. I do appreciate that it's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, but really getting, you know, that sweet spot between us making our business objectives whilst ensuring that our employees have got that financial wellness has been a real game changer for us in this sector. Thanks, Georgie.